I'm, I'm Chuck Redding, and this is a female Harris's hawk. I've flown since 2011, and
2011, wow.
it's been a few years.
Yeah. And your glove.
My glove, this is a special falconry glove that I stole from a friend of mine, Mike Wiegel. And this is the first glove that I've actually tried to take care of. All my other gloves turned from $150 nice glove into worthless garbage because I don't keep them maintained. But this one I've worked very hard at doing.
And what do you have to do? Put leather soap or?
Yeah, just keep them clean, basically, because when you feed on the glove, they get caked, and then they get hard, and then they crack, and it doesn't take long just to ruin them.
Oh, I
This
see.
one has, in fact, outlasted most of mine because I've made some effort.
And so all of those puncture, those talons, they don't puncture it?
Not really. If they find a seam, it's
Oh, I
not
see.
all that pleasant, and these raptors do find seams fairly often. And but red tails, among the moderate-sized falconry birds, red tails are the worst because they have the strongest grip. Harris hawks are pretty bad. Peregrines can get you. I realized one time when I was helping Jim Entz that they have a whole lot more grip than I realized.
Wow. Wow, this is wonderful.
Well, Gracie is a falcon. She's a tundra falcon. And her grip, it's strong, but you'll notice her toes are long and narrow. And I don't need as much coverage, so I can use a smaller glove as opposed to somebody that's flying a bigger hawk, like a Harris hawk or a red tail. The other thing is, when they're sitting on the glove, the reason they don't puncture into the leather is because they know the difference between actually hanging on to something that they're trying to eat and just hanging out with me or anybody else. So she's just relaxed right now. She'll grip it enough so that she doesn't fall off, but not so much that she's gonna like sink her talons through the leather and into my hand.
So they seem a little less powerful than those talons.
They are. Their grip is because of the way they hunt. They will dispatch their prey. A red tail and a Harris hawk will dispatch their prey through piercing. They squeeze and their long talons, pierce some critical organ, and that's how they dispatch their prey. She does it slightly different. She doesn't use her talons to do that. She uses her beak to do the same thing. It's just that she would bite the neck and sever the spinal column so that it would kill them instantly, whatever bird that she's just caught.
And then you molded that
Well,
mask for her?
these are molded on what's called a block. It looks something like this. It's made with 3 pieces of leather, and it's stitched together, and then you wet it, and then you put it on this block, and that gives it this nice shape. And you have different sizes blocks to create different size hoods, and so that way you can fit the hood to the bird. And because the same peregrine, another peregrine, might take a slightly larger hood or a slightly smaller one.
It's amazing. Wow. Well, thank you and Gracie. Mike, we appreciate
Sure.
both of you for coming.
Sure. A peregrine, a falcon, when they defecate, they just go straight down. So, but take a red tail or a Harris hawk, when they defecate, they will eject it and it will go some distance. depending-
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
red tails in particular.
So instead of being, when you have them in the house, you just have to bear that in mind and have a big enough area covered with a tarp to allow for the trajectory of a Harris hawk or a red tail, whereas mine is a lot easier. You know, I just have to cover an
Yeah,
area
just a little tray.
directly below her, so she's more house trainable.
Is that something to do with not wanting to leave a trail for predators, or?
It's just an anatomical thing that has, I couldn't tell you really why that is. I mean, in some respects, it seems like ejecting it out would be a good thing, because if you're standing in a nest, you kind of send stuff out so it doesn't mess
Contaminate.
up the immediate area. Yeah. Why that is, I don't really know. I mean, there may be a reason, I'm just not aware of it, you know, that has been studied. And it's possibly out there in some of the biological journals or something. I've just never run across it.
Sometimes evolution is just accident, just happened to be that way. You know, like a great horned owl and a red tail are kind of the diurnal, nocturnal equivalent, right? And like Mike was telling somebody a while ago, owls don't have crops. Well, you're eating the same prey, living in the same environment, and here's one with a crop, one without, right? And this is probably along the same kind of thing. Also, falcons tend to live on cliffs, and it may not do any good anyway. They're stuck with it, right? You know, they're way back inside a cave, essentially, and you don't want your baby peregrine to wander to the edge of a cliff just to
Poop.
to clear it, right?
Yeah, you can actually see falconers and field biologists use the fact that these birds, like falcons, they nest on cliffs, and they'll walk to the edge and then do their thing, and it leaves a white streak down it. And over the years, it looks like this white chalky substance. And so field biologists and falconers will drive along until they say, I bet you there's an eyrie up there, and so there's a nest up there.
Yeah. So just like eagles, they call them eyries.
Yes, yeah, just all. They don't build nests per se. Eagles do, but falcons, they live. They call it a scrape. Basically, what it is just kind of a bowl, like any kind of area where they can put their eggs, but they don't build like nests or anything like that. It's just not their thing. So they just lay the eggs right there on some little depression on the cliff face or in the gravel or something. They call them scrapes, and they might scrape out a little area so that they can lay their eggs there. But they don't build nests per se, like other animals do. You know, they weave out of twigs and stuff. And eagles, their nests are huge.
Yeah.
You know, and they get bigger and bigger over time. So, because they come back to the same one.
Wow. So your bird is a pack bird, and his is.
His is.
Oh, yours is pack.
Only these Harris hawks.
Only the Harris.
Red tails are just like peregrines in the sense that, yeah, they hang out with their mate. Peregrines don't even hang out with their mate during the year. Red tails do. But they, like Mike was saying, I guess they get together during the season and raise young and then take off. The red tail pair will wander up and down and migrate together and so on.
But they're unusual. Harris hawks
Yeah.
are unusual in that respect, that they hunt in groups. Most raptors do not. The vast majority. Harris hawks do, and I believe there may be one other.
Galapagos.
Yeah.
Which is
But in general,
the Galapagos hawk,
they
which is
don't.
another buzzard.
They don't do it.
They're closely related to red tails, actually. And they do.
It's speculated that because of that tendency, that they live in social groups, that may be why they tend to be a little more social with the falconer, and they form kind of a bond with them because they're used to forming these bonds with others. Whereas these don't. They're about as affectionate as a rock, you know? And so they're not like a cat or a dog or something like that. Or they're more like a cat, actually, than a dog. But it's just not their thing. They live their life alone in isolation, and that's, how it evolved.
But you think Gracie knows you, and
Sure.
She does.
you feed her, so you're her
Yeah,
useful
she knows
dog.
me, but it's not like she has a relationship with me, but it's a relationship on her terms, kind of like a cat in a way. You know, cats don't need you, and so the relationship you have with a cat is on that cat's terms. Well, it's the same with her. You know, she's basically royalty. I'm a peasant servant of hers. She tolerates me as long as I do know my place and my role. And that's basically it.
So it's kind of worth keeping that in mind when, you know, you see them hooded and that doesn't look fun and they're jammed in a box. Actually, those two, there are times I can't get them out of there. They like it so much. So, all right, deader and a beaver hat. Hold on, let's try this. That looks from there. Okay. Okay, we're good. I'm just going to use this. This is kind of what I just said. The very first year that they're hatched and they go wherever, whether it's this bird was hatched somewhere 1,000, 2,000 miles north of us. The Harris's hawk, who you'll see in a while, is hatched down near Beeville, Texas. And my red tail came from somewhere maybe 500 miles north of us. We have no idea. They just kind of show up and you catch them. Though we are hunters, and Mike and I spend a lot of time trying to catch game, what I do is quite a bit simpler than what Mike does. But neither of us catch enough game over the season, even to feed these three birds. So the idea that we're somehow destroying game animals and all, yeah, we catch as many as we can, but it isn't even enough to keep these three alive. We both of us go to commercial applications. Another thing, the peregrine falcon, aquamato falcon, saker falcon, which is a European and Asian large falcon, they're actually genetically like a gyrfalcon, which is a huge falcon, bigger than Gracie there. California condor, the falconry community, without the falconry community, they would all be either extinct or close to extinction. We worked a lot with the folks who were trying to bring them back. You know, I'm sorry I have my back turned to you. So what else did I say here? Oh yeah, and banning DDT, which is, they were piling it on people. Did anybody ever got it dumped on them in their life? That's what they used to do. It was becoming less and less effective, but it was killing birds at a great rate. Actually, the DDT devolves into DEE and it thins the eggshells. And pelicans, none of these birds can sit on their eggs without smashing them. That's essential. Is that about right, Mike?
Yeah, that's true. Falconers were the ones that first started noticing that there was a decline in the peregrine population out there. There weren't
the subspecies east of the Mississippi, the eastern anatom, was essentially extinct. So, and finally, the falconry community works with people like Ducks Unlimited for the other side of the equation, things we chase. Yeah. Every wild raptor that we catch will survive almost indefinitely, 30 to 35 years. 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4 wild raptors die the first year. Am I going the wrong direction? Yes. Okay, sorry. Let's get technical. Oh yeah, Mike is a falconer. Ever since he got his permit, he has flown nothing but falcons. He started with kestrels, he flew a Barbary falcon, and now he's flown several peregrines. I'm an Austringer. That's somebody who flies with buzzards, like these guys. We'll talk about that term. Hawks and eagles, those are Austringers. It comes from the French word auteur, which means goshawk. And there I am. Good looking rascal. Anyway, that was literally 59 years ago. And the red tail I have on my hand there was maybe the second red tail that I trained at that point. It's probably 50% bigger than the one you're going to see in a little bit. That is a very big female red tail. Females and raptors are bigger, as many of you know. Whether it's an owl, a hawk, a buzzard, makes no difference. He said, oh yeah, here's something. This is really kind of goofy. This is what I spent 5 hours on. You won't believe it, actually, when you see it. Let's talk about eagles, right? Everyone knows we have the golden eagle and the bald eagle in North America. The golden eagle is distributed worldwide. The bald eagle is exclusively in North America. But they are not particularly closely related. They just happen to look alike, and they're huge. There's a golden eagle. They call them golden eagles because of the back of his head there. You can see those golden feathers. There's a bald eagle, national symbol. And basically, they're fast, powerful, strong. They catch a lot of things. They both eat carrion. They're also a major threat if you're living in an area that has bald eagles or golden eagles, and especially if you're flying a bird like Mike's, who will leave him to chase things hundreds of yards away. You have to watch out for eagles. They can fly a peregrine down midair and catch them. That's how fast they're, even though they look real lumbering and slow. Nationally, the thing you have to watch out for if you're flying the big falcons is, believe it or not, red-tailed hawks. They are a huge threat. Golden eagle, okay, basically I say cosmopolitan, real worldwide distribution. A big female weighs about 15 pounds. A big female bald eagle weighs about 14. So they're roughly the same ballpark in size. But the bald eagle is very water-oriented. They prefer to catch fish. They also like all the bird life around them. Herons, ducks, geese, and anything else that is dumb enough to show up, they'll nab too. And almost every raptor will eat carrion. That's just something worth keeping in mind. Da-da-da. Oh yeah, this is where I start wandering off. They're not closely related to each other. The golden eagle is more closely related to this red-tailed hawk than it is a bald eagle. And I'm using the word buzzard to describe these. That's actually perfectly correct, even though in the United States we've got them associated with vultures. That was, everything kind of got screwed up. If you look anywhere in the world, the buzzards are these little kind of eagle-looking hawk-like birds, like a red tail or a Harris's. And here is the archetype. But that is a European common buzzard. That is the classic buzzard. It's a little bit smaller than a red-tailed hawk, extremely closely related to a red tail. Some people fly them, mostly new falconers in Europe, train them. They're real amenable to training and they're real friendly and everything, but they're not as aggressive as a red-tailed hawk. So they actually breed red-tailed hawks in Europe and the UK because they're better falconry birds than these guys. But these guys are pretty capable.
But we don't have buzzards here?
We do. In fact, all the hawks, the red-tailed hawk is a buzzard, the Harris hawk is a buzzard. Nobody uses the name except incorrectly when they put it with vultures. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And the broad-winged hawk, the red-shouldered hawk, the Swainson's hawk. Anyway, those are all actually properly called buzzards. I'm sorry I keep doing this. Oh yeah, here we go. Eagle is just a name, and I'll show you a slide here in a minute that will really surprise you. Okay, in general, we think of as a huge hawk-like bird, right? Can you go up or down, please? Okay, this guy fits what we expect. That's 22 pounds. He's like this size. That's a stellar sea eagle. In terms of weight, that's the biggest eagle anywhere in the world. And they are a very close relative of the bald eagle. They have the same kind of habits. They like to fish. They rob osprey of their food. They hunt all those birds around there. Now, I just said that was the heaviest eagle. This is probably, if you look at their dimensions, the harpy eagle is probably the biggest eagle, but not the heaviest, okay? So, and they're not closely related. They're all over the genetic map. Yes, this guy right here looks pretty big in the picture. Everyone know what a Cooper's hawk is? Yeah, this is the South Nicobar serpent eagle, size of a Cooper's hawk. So it kind of goofs everything up, but now I'll show you something else. Is this interesting or should I? Okay. Okay, you're biased. Okay. Since I showed up, you like it. Okay, this guy right here is about the size of a red tail. Has anyone ever seen white-tailed hawks? Yeah, this is another buzzard. And we see them a lot. They're very beautiful. They're about the size of a red-tailed hawk. Here is their first cousin. Boom! Look at that rascal. We're back to something like this. They're almost twins genetically. That guy weighs 7 pounds. That's 3.5 times the weight of my red-tailed hawk. That is basically a red tail on steroids. It's good, I gotta use that next party I go to. Now look at this little rascal. Okay, and I'm saying little, he's smaller than a red-tailed hawk. This thing is extremely closely genetically related to a golden eagle. They've given a different Latin description and everything, and they're debating whether they should put them in there in the same genus. But that's a booted eagle, that's a European, and they're in Asia too, Middle East a little bit. But he looks kind of like a red tail, doesn't he? If your birders are out here. And there is this guy who you'll see in a few minutes. Maybe I should pick him up here. Would anyone like to see him? Okay. But does he look scared to death right there? He was. A friend of mine had just trapped him. Roger Crandall, who Mike knows. That was when I got him. There he was just a couple of months later. He's got his wings hanging because it was wet out there that day. But I'll get him out now, maybe. There's my Harris's hawk. Oops, semi-gruesome, we'll keep going. This is the first Harris hawk I ever had. This was Dart. He survived Hurricane Ike. A really good friend of Mike's lived down on Bolivar Island, and his house got shoved 1.5 feet off its foundation. This guy and 2 hybrid peregrine falcons were up in the attic along with his dogs. He went over to visit with his cousin across the street during the eye, and the water came back, and he had to watch his house with all his animals in the attic. He had this great escape plan for all of them. He had a chainsaw. He was going to cut a hole in the roof. All the birds had transmitters on them. He was going to let them go. Is that a pretty accurate story? Yeah. And his dogs and he were all going to have to suck it up, but the birds were going to at least get out, right? Well, that whole plan went out the window. I guess should I bring the birds at the end maybe or something? Well, I'm just trying to decide when to bring these up, but this guy isn't really working, so.
Perhaps it needs to be back here, in line with, we have a set upstairs that has to work that way.
Oh,
You have to
okay.
be up and in the middle of it to get it to work.
Am I doing okay so far? Is it interesting to anybody? Okay.
Well, they were messing with that.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, you got it?
No, go ahead.
Falconers kind of have their own terminology. And the way that they look at birds, raptors, is they divide them into 3 broad categories. And what we call them is largely based on their wing shape. So there's long wings, which are all the falcons. There's broad wings, which is a broader wing, which is all the buzzards that he's been talking about. And then there's short wings, which are the true hawks, the accipiters. And so generally, if you talk to a falconer, he'll say, oh, I fly long wings, or I fly broad wings, or something like that. And that means, if he's flying Short wings, he might be flying something like a Cooper's hawk or a goshawk or something like that. If he's flying broad wings, he'll fly what he's going to show you. And if he's flying long wings, he'll be flying something similar to this, the true colors.
And the only reason I don't like the broad wing description is because there's a broad winged hawk, which is another buzzard. So that would even bother me. So there's two of us in the whole country who are promoting this whole buzzard idea as an identification. A friend of mine in Arkansas, he and I go to great pains to call these guys buzzards. But
if you look at their wings, since we call them short wings, if you see their wings, they're not short at all.
yeah,
But they're shorter than, say, these guys, the long wings. But they're not short by any means.
let's see. Oop, pretty long. Listen, I'm gonna go back. Let me know if I'm going too slowly or anything needs to change. Can you all hear me still? Oh, good. Okay, that's this guy without his hood on. You see this little thing coming right out here? That is one of these.
Gonna turn the lights on.
It's a little radio.
Oh.
And he wears a harness. Do you have one? Is she harnessed
No,
up?
but
right
I
now?
have one in that black box, if you want to show it to me.
Hey, that's okay. I just was curious whether you
Yeah.
had yours on.
She doesn't.
Mike puts one on during the season. This guy's carried his forever. And you put a little radio on him. It's tiny, weighs 8 grams or something like that. And in there, I'll show you these receivers after a while.
Oh, are you talking about the harness?
Yeah, your
Oh,
harness.
she does have her harness on.
Yeah.
You just can't see it because she puts it underneath her feathers. It's like a backpack, but she doesn't like it outside of her, so she brings it into her feathers.
Yeah,
So you can't
and he
see it.
does the same. So you wouldn't know it except for that. And then he's got a little bell on him as well. And that stays on him until the summer comes and he drops that feather. And then the next fall I put it on. It's a tiny little bell. And when you see,
Thank you.
like, oh yeah, he's good.
Right on cue.
Everyone can hear okay? Okay, I'm just gonna keep going because technology bugs.
Turn him this way a little bit. There you go.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, this hood was made by a friend of ours, Jim Enns, who used to be my sponsor 20 years ago. He's a great hood maker. Mike's hoods are 10 times better than mine. And Jim's sort of in his own category, what you say in terms of hood making.
Oh, yeah.
But he made this hood at my request a few months ago.
Now, is that Cisco?
This is Cisco, yes. And without his hood, he looks like that.
And he's 20, you said.
He's almost 21. In
Wow.
April of next year, he'll be, 21. I'm guessing he hatched in April or May, somewhere within a range of 500 to 800 miles north of Fort Worth. That's about all I can tell you. He just showed up in Fort Worth, and he was the scruffiest looking red tail I had ever seen in my life on a hawk trap. And he turned into quite the beauty, I guess.
What's the purpose of the hood?
The hood keeps them calm, and no bird really likes having it put on. They tend to battle you, but once you get it on them, they settle right down. They sleep in them, they can eat through them, even though that can get you bitten occasionally, especially falcons bite worse than these guys, so it's worth, Jimmy used to feed his bird all the time through the hood, so.
What does passage mean?
Passage. Passage is kind of what it sounds like, a migrating bird. Under the regulations, you have to trap a first-year bird. You cannot trap an adult. In fact, you shouldn't even technically even put a trap out just to even look at them. You have to correctly identify, which could be tough sometimes, a first-year bird. The plumage is quite a bit different, but sometimes it's not obvious when they're on a power pole a quarter mile away. They just look like a silhouette. But sometimes you can tell from their behavior that they're a first-year bird. Mike's bird also changes her appearance. She looked quite a bit different when he trapped her. He trapped her down on South Padre.
Have you ever brought birds that need rehabilitation, they're injured, and you ever do that type of work?
I don't personally. We have some friends. One of my very close friends, Charlie Rohack, she did that for 30, 40 years. She's now really kind of tailed off of doing it. But she was actually my falconry apprentice 12 or 13 years ago, or whatever it was. Time goes by so fast.
What are all the little things sticking up and out?
Okay, this is part, kind of half decoration, half something to guide your fingers when you put it on.
Okay.
And, yeah, I was looking at Mike's hood. Some of these things are real fancy. They've got crazy looking feathers and everything else. These guys right here, if I wanted to take the hood off, I'd bite this one and pull that one. This is the one that tightens it. I'll bring out my Harris's hawk in a minute. And you'll notice hers are much shorter. She doesn't fight me when I hood her very much. But when she gets that hood on, her goal is to somehow get it off and rip it to shreds. And our friend Jim has rebuilt that same hood twice because of that issue. Excuse me. So, what else? Did that answer your question?
Mm-hmm, yes.
Yeah, good. We're getting good at this. By the time we're done with the presentation, we'll have it down. You'll be quite impressed. Let's see. This is in your handout, so I'm just going to zip through this slide. But it takes some work to become a falconer. You have to find a sponsor, which can be really tough. A sponsor kind of supervises your activities for a couple of years. You have to be over 12 years old. That was a stretch for me. You have to pay $21 to say you missed lunch. There's an exam that a friend of ours who's flown eagles, falcons, buzzards all over the world, he wanted to get going this season, and he missed a couple of questions on the having to do with the regulations, and he's basically knocked out of the water. He knows more about falconry than most of us, and it's a tricky exam. Some of the questions are terrible. Anyway, then you go and make all the equipment you need, jesses and all this kind of stuff, build a facility, and then get Texas Parks to come inspect it for you. You might deprive anybody over here, but a few. What else? Anyway, an apprentice can keep one bird at a time. And that's the legal maximum. And the good news is that ever since 2010, except for flying a peregrine falcon, an apprentice can fly any game hawk there is. The old days, in Texas, you could fly a red-tailed hawk, American kestrel, which is really quite a tricky bird to train, even though they're easy to trap, or a red-shouldered hawk. Almost everybody flies red-tailed hawks. And part of the reason these guys are so popular is that falconers of every level fly them. Apprentices, it used to be almost completely apprentices. Now everybody flies them. I had an apprentice who got his general license. He came home from college for a few months. He called me and said, "You got a trap I could use?" He went out and trapped a red tail, trained him, hunted with him, and let him go again in a period of about 2 months. That was Daniel. So these guys are probably the most popular falconry bird. Any questions real fast? Yeah, I pretty much covered all this. No, I didn't. Apprentice, 1 bird. General falconer, 3 birds. And master falconer can have 5 birds if he's challenged mentally. Mike is a master level, and I'm a general level. I figured I'd rather have a transmitter than upgrade my permit. So I've been a general falconer forever. But if you're a master falconer, you can have your own bird abatement business. You can fly eagles, and you can have 5 birds. And that's not anything that really grabs me. So that's why, and I'm a cheapskate. And there we go. That's a golden eagle with his tongue hanging out. That's the way they look around here. That's my daughter Arnold. He and Cisco hunt together. So, raptor facts. Okay. This is the one everyone is familiar with, right? Their vision is just phenomenal. Looking in that direction, their vision, straight on in front of them, their vision is about 8 times better. Plus they have a second, what they call a fovea, that's a little dimple in the back of your eye. We have one, right? They have a second one, so they'll be looking here and they're looking over here at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah, and I didn't know that. We have a friend who's a falconer, James Major, who's also an ophthalmologist. And I was over at Jim Ensig's house, my former sponsor and friend, and James starts talking about a second fovea. And he's going along, oh yeah, and they have this and that. And Jim and I are both sitting there like we were well aware of that. When James left, I asked Jim, Jim's been doing this, he started before I did, back early 1960s. I go, did you ever hear about that second fovea? No. But they have that. And so their vision is just outstanding. This is a point I made a little while ago. This guy's 21 and he's performing like he did 10 years ago.
Wow.
That's my Harris. I'll bring her out in a few minutes. This is another extremely popular falconry bird. Part of it is that in the wild they act like wolf packs. It's the females are bigger. It's a matriarchal arrangement, but you'll have a pack of. It's basically a family group led by an alpha female, and they live in. They're kind of a desert bird, at least up closer to the United States and down into Mexico. So being in a pack is very useful for protecting themselves against, say, red-tailed hawks, which are bigger and stronger. And they can catch game that they couldn't otherwise catch. I'm sorry, I keep having my back dirty. What else? But that social behavior makes them really a lot of fun to fly. And so they're probably, next to a red tail, they're the most popular bird. Peregrines are probably, I'm guessing if you go to the weathering guards at these meets, that peregrines are probably the 3rd most popular. Absolutely the most popular falcon to fly. More people fly my types of birds than falcons because it's a more complicated, there's a whole lot more trickiness to making it all work. Mike hunts up in Rosebud, Texas, a good part of the time. He's got a house up there. This guy, if you want to go hunting, I had this friend way back when I was in early 20s, and he had a red tail, and this lady stopped and goes, how do you train that bird? He goes, I just cut her weight and put her in a tree. And that's kind of the difference between what I do and what he does. Mike spends each season with his 2 falcons getting him to fly till they're a dot in the sky. And trying to set them up so you catch game is tricky. Mike, anything about big falcons, you should talk to Mike about. But it's almost a different sport. Females are larger than males. That goes for all raptors that I know of. Large raptors are faster than slower raptors. It's deceptive. A merlin looks like the fastest bird in the world. Mike's flown some merlins. They look like a bullet, but I'll bet Gracie is 50% faster than a merlin. We have a friend who's been doing this stuff forever, and he'll go to his grave swearing that merlins are the fastest birds in the world. This is something interesting. Wow. This guy in California, he was a physicist, pilot, skydiver, and falconer. Okay. And he was trying to figure out how fast these guys could really go. Everybody knows how fast peregrine falcons are, right? And the bird book said, 150, 200, This guy actually trained his bird to jump out of a plane after a lure that he flew to, that he'd throw the lure out, and then he had all his gear set up. Out would go the falcon, and then down, and that falcon would catch that lure based on the time it took from one altitude, Guy came up with 243 miles an hour was their peak that they ever did, which is just phenomenal. Things weighed about 1.75 pounds going that fast. They shift their wings in a certain way. I mean, it's one of the reasons that people fly. Why Mike goes to an audacious amount of work to fly his bird. And, but it is very cool to watch. But it's off in the distance usually. They're overhead. It's cool. Yeah, in level flight, they're not even the fastest falcon. A gyrfalcon is probably the fastest in level flight, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would.
Red-tailed hawk can eat 1,000 per year. It's quite the diet, isn't it?
Oh. Well, you know, they keep the rodent population.
Yeah, you can strike that from the record. I mentioned this before about Harris hawks. Difference between hawks and falcons, we'll go quickly through this again. I call them buzzard hawks, but those are generally the buteo, the parabuteo, some of the other related buzzard hawks. Falcons, and the one at the top is the most popular in that group. Goshawks used to be extremely popular game hawks, but red tails and Harrises just kind of pushed them out in terms of popularity. But goshawks are fantastic falconry birds. They're just a little bit trickier, and they're not as friendly, and they're not as really as robust. But you can see that they're different. If somebody says, well, there's some hawks, right? You kind of lump them in together. But they're all distinctly different. That's Cisco looking at you on the left. That's Gracie. This is some unknown goshawk from somewhere. See the difference? I mean, it's a distinct thing. That's one reason I like to separate instead of calling them all hawks. If Mike rolls his eyes, you know I'm really off on a tangent. But any quick run through here, slim body, falcons, okay, slim body, look at the difference. See how this fluffy looking he is compared with Mike's falcon? Every falcon, except maybe the deer falcon, has a streak under its eye. Peregrines take it to a huge extreme. They have a black cap that goes, at least as adults, goes over their whole head. Dark eyes, okay. Oh, yes, sir.
How much does he weigh right now?
Oh, yeah. This is whoever gets this correct, I think I may have already given away, free lunch. How much would you say this guy weighs?
7 pounds.
7?
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
4.
2. Anyone else?
10.
2. So who said 2? Good one. Free lunch.
Between the two, which one do you think weighs more? That one, yeah. What's her weight? I mean,
His flying weight is almost right at 2 pounds.
Wow.
grams?
Grams, 454. I'm sorry, 900. 900 grams.
Okay, Gracie's 1,000 grams.
Wow.
She's
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Yeah, right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but look at the difference in the size. You know, she's all muscle.
Yeah, everything is
And she's all
compact.
compact. He's got his feathers kind of fluffed out, you know, because they're relaxed.
That is my favorite big falcon right there. If I were flying a big falcon, it would be a prairie falcon. There's Gracie right there. Is that Gracie? Can you see it? I think it is. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. There's a Merlin. That's a little tiny guy, really. There's American Kestrel. That's the smallest North American falcon. Mike and I have both flown Kestrels. Mike had a Kestrel that was actually one of my favorite birds of all time. We used to go hunting with her all the time, and she was like this big.
3 to 5 ounces?
Right.
Oh my goodness, that's like a sparrow.
Yeah, they're the size of a mourning dove, probably.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're cute little guys, but they're actually pretty fierce when you get them going. But they used to be an apprentice bird, one of the 3 apprentices birds in Texas. But they're not easy. It takes some special skill to get them going. And Mike had a really dandy one.
Let me ask you, when you
Yes,
go
sir.
hunting, the bird catches the prey and brings it back to you?
The only bird in the entire history of falconry that brings them back is this one right here. Mike has to hike 250 yards. Everybody who flies red tails has to dig through the. I figured out a way to get him to bring it back to me. And basically, I take advantage of his breed. So he'll drag it from a long way away back to me.
What does this little one eat?
They eat mice and small birds. In the wintertime, they become really active bird hawks. In the summer, yeah, they'll take starlings, sparrows. This friend of mine, Dan Hillsman, up in lived up in Austin. He was a birder and a falconer. This story, I'm not sure will impress the crowd, but he was taking this picture of a little shorebird out of nowhere.
Guess what?
A kestrel nailed him. Yeah,
Not
shorebirds.
for lunch.
Yeah. So that's the other end. This is the smallest falcon, at least in North America. There's the biggest. That's a gyrfalcon, and they're fairly, by relative scale, they're fairly popular in falconry. But they're big and impressive. They really are. So, oh, there's Mike's other bird. This is Lenny. This bird was raised in a chamber, a captive bred bird. Is he sort of peels?
He's a nod.
He's a nod. Okay.
Yeah, there's 3 types of pairs in North America. She's a tundra, Lenny is an anatom, and there's one other one which is the peels, which you see up in the Pacific Northwest, like Washington State.
We'll zip through here. These are the true hawks. You'll see they look quite a bit different. Cooper's hawks, people are familiar with those. They're the ones that are catching blue jays and doves all around Houston. They moved into Houston because of it. In the last 40 years, these guys have changed their behavior. When I was growing up in high school, say 60 years ago, these guys were so shy. If you approached their nest, they would abandon the nest. Now right in West University, they're nesting over the street. And they'll sit on your back fence. They're completely different, just over 40-year period. The first one I ever saw, I happened to be in Ojai, California. The friend of mine who was out there was another guy who was interested in this stuff. He was like a Cooper's hawk. And we were just blown away by it. Just seeing it, he was flying off. Now I see him every other day. So this guy looks bigger than that Cooper's hawk. This is a sharp-shinned hawk. He's about the size of that kestrel. Little tiny thrush-sized bird. I'd say 3 to 5 ounces. Most don't believe any of my numbers. Those are all my estimates, but they're in the ballpark. And these guys hunt small birds. And there's the goshawk. I see I even have a pronunciation guide here, because people see that and they go, is that a goshawk? Well, it's actually goshawk. That came from goosehawk, actually, originally. And they've reclassified the American goshawk with a whole different genus and species just to confuse us. So, but these used to be, if you weren't flying a falcon like Mike's, the hawk you'd fly would be this one. And they are phenomenally good game hawks. And in Europe, ahead of firearms, these guys were putting game on the table, catching rabbits, anything, pheasant, quail, to feed Europe, right? Give them meat on the table. And the goshawk was the one. But now you go to a meet, you might see a goshawk or two. and you'll see 50 Harrises and red tails and 40 peregrines. They're just not as popular. Yes, sir.
How did it get the genus or species name Gentilis? Was it gentle?
Yeah, they're about as gentle as a kicking mule. I don't know.
In Europe, amongst the hawks, they were considered kind of gentle. But they don't have, in Europe, they do have goshawks, but they don't have red tails. That's why they were popular over there. Matter of fact, they were so popular and so successful, they used to refer to them as the cook's hawk.
Right.
Because they were, they're real quick, they're a sprinter. They're out of the starting blocks and they accelerate real quickly, and they can catch all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, they're super maneuverable. They're very cool. I mean, we know people who fly them. So there's another one right there. They're very good looking birds too. There's a Cooper's hawk, and just for comparison, to show you a true hawk and a falcon flying together. I mean, not together, but just the shape. The size is not correct, but the shape is spot on. And that's why, let's call these guys long wings, call them short wings. Actually, the length is really the same. There's a sharpshoot hawk, little tiny rascal. And here we go with this. Michael start rolling his eyes here. Two most popular birds are red tails and Harrises. And they are not hawks, they're buzzards. But this is probably correct. In popularity, red tail, Harris, and peregrine falcons, including a whole lot of hybrids. They breed hybrid falcons of all types, especially with peregrines. Mike's buddy down at Bolivar has two Gyr, or used to actually. He used to have two Gyr peregrine hybrids that were bred in captivity. And then the buzzards, blah, blah, blah. Think of them as small eagles. That's the best way to think of it. It's the buteo, it's the parabuteo, which is the Harris hawk. There's some other ones. They all look kind of similar. There's Cisco. He's a good looking rascal. Red-tailed hawk. Oh yeah, in the UK they call them red-tailed buzzards. And they are bred actually in the UK, as are Harris hawks and peregrines, everything. If you're a falconer in Europe or the UK, you pretty much have a captive bred bird. Here in the United States, the vast majority of birds are trapped from the wild during their first year. These three, I guess I could switch birds. That's Farrah, my other Harris hawk. And this guy right here, I generally say, well, the buteo hawks generally like ground quarry. This short-tailed hawk, there's a small population of them in South Florida. They hunt nothing but birds, which is pretty amazing. Look at, they have these long toes. Look at the long toes on that. That's how you can tell a bird hawk. If you look at Mike's peregrine, real long, skinny toes. It's for snatching birds out of the air. And the short-tailed hawks, which is actually a buzzard. This is my red-shouldered hawk. I flew her for about a year. She's one of the smartest hawks and the nicest hawks I had, except she turned face aggressive. And she nailed me 3 times and I had to release her, so I let her go. There's that white-tailed hawk I mentioned earlier. These are all actually buzzard hawks. There's his first cousin. This one I said was a red tail on steroids. That's the black-chested buzzard eagle. And this is considered the largest hawk in the United States, the ferruginous hawk. Our friend who missed the test by 2 points had flown a whole bunch of eagles. He's really dying to get a ferruginous hawk. And they're pretty cool too. They're just different. The only time I ever messed with them was an apprentice trapped one when he was out trying to get a red tail. And he was trying to prevail on his sponsor to let him keep her. Unfortunately, he took it back where he got it, but went and trapped a red tail. They can be good, but red tails are extremely versatile. There's that buzzard eagle. Booted eagle, excuse me. That's Cisco right there flying overhead with another shape comparison with a sharp shin. That size is really pretty correct. Yeah, how are we doing on time?
10 minutes.
10 minutes? We can zip through here and have Q&A rather than me droning on and on. I'm sorry, you're pointing?
To see your other.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I need to remind you something. Okay, there he is about to pounce. I'll run through and kill this thing. There's a wild Harris hawk. There's some telemetry. This is how we track them. Get the stuff at the bottom. Those are little tiny. That one on the bottom there is the one that he has on his back. Other raptors, great horned owl, which is really an eagle owl. We already talked about this. Mississippi kites, you've seen them flying around your house probably. There are tons of them in Houston. Northern harrier, they used to call them marsh hawks. Part of the, okay, we don't need that. Here's our friend Jim Entz with his, that's a first year. You can see the difference between that bird and Gracie and the plumage right there. And that's our friend Jim Entz. This picture is taken about 2 weeks ago with a merlin. Which again, it's a little tiny rascal, about the size of his hand. But Jim is big on merlins and peregrines. There's my prairie, goshawk. There's another buzzard, my red tail. And that's it. Okay, yes,
If
ma'am.
your bird or anybody's bird becomes ill in any way, do you have special places you take them? Or
Absolutely.
Do you treat them, or do you have a special kind of veterinarian that looks after them?
It's one of the requirements is ahead of time you need to find a qualified raptor vet, because hunting with these guys is a risky business. They get injured. This guy's been injured a couple of times. They get sometimes just sitting on the perch wrong. They'll get infection. There's all kinds of things. Even though these three species are extremely robust. There's some that are like a goshawk and a gyrfalcon are both considerably, even though they're badass and all that, they're considerably less robust than any of these three.
One of the things on the test that you are examined on is symptoms. Falconer has to be able to diagnose certain symptoms and be able to treat the illness. Like a common one is what we call frounce. It's actually trichomoniasis, and it's formed by a protozoan, and it causes a problem with them. And being able to diagnose the symptoms of it and then know what to give them in order to cure it. So yes, we do. We handle the usual simple scrapes and abrasions and things like that. But we also do other things as well. Because only in the past, 10, 15 years, exotic veterinary medicine has become more mainstream. Prior to that, veterinary medicine primarily focused on, what you call companion animals, dogs and cats, and livestock. And there wasn't a lot. In the 70s, it was less so. And so, over falconry's, it's anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 years old. And there's a lot of old remedies, I'll call them home remedies, that had to be developed way a long time ago because there wasn't any, the practice of medicine as we know it today was not established back in the 1700s or the 1600s.
And I know you spend so much time, hours and years with these animals, you want to keep them healthy.
Yeah, I'll share something with you. I'll waste some more of your time. My pathway to falconry was kind of a fluke, to be honest. I was a zookeeper at one time, and we used to get birds in. We'd get a lot of stuff that would be donated. People would get something, and like a boa constrictor got too big, and they bring it to the zoo, they donate it. Well, every year we'd get 1 to 3 red-tailed hawks. Sometimes it'd be Cooper's hawks, sometimes it might be something else. But we get them, and what we would normally do is we'd examine them, see if they're okay. If they're okay and releasable, they don't have a broken wing or something, there was a field behind the zoo that we would take them out and release them. Okay. Well, because a lot of these animals came to us because somebody had kept them as a pet, and I wasn't convinced that these birds were necessarily making it in the wild, but I didn't know. And so this was before the internet. And so I went to the library and I read everything I could. There wasn't a lot on falconry because I thought that maybe there were techniques in falconry that we could apply in a zoological setting that might increase the survivability of these birds, and they would go back and contribute to the breeding population. And so that's how I kind of found my way into falconry. And in the early days before I knew really a lot, we had a bird come in, and I worked with it a little. It died a couple of days later. I did not know at the time because I was new to this and I wasn't a very experienced falconer. I wasn't even really a falconer because I hadn't learned enough. I later recognized, years later, I recognized that bird had frowns. If I had been a falconer or more knowledgeable back then of falconry techniques, I probably could have saved that bird's life because I would have recognized the symptoms and I'd know what to give it in order to combat that. What drugs to get it, or to tell the vet, hey, I need some, whatever. So, that's it.
They always come back?
So far.
I mean, no, why do they come back?
That is a great question. And that is the number one question. When you get these guys, all three of these birds were just hysterically afraid when you get them. They're full and they're scared. You basically stay with them till they start getting hungry. You coax them into eating. Once you coax them into eating, which can be anywhere from the same day to 3 weeks later, the next day probably they'll be hopping quite easy. It's getting them to hunt consistently with you is 100 times harder than getting them to come back. And I can give anyone 4 instructions and say, do this for 3 weeks, and I'll be surprised if he's not flying to you. Because they're very smart. The minute you feed them, sometimes they give you this look. When they actually eat something that you give them, when you first get them, they're too afraid. You put it up to them. They won't, but they eat it a little bit. Sometimes they give you this funny look, right? It happens to most falconers. They suddenly, oh, wait a second, and suddenly things progress.
When we take them out, they don't have to come back. I mean, they choose to. And so, like for instance, when I fly racing, there's an area where I go, and sometimes there's eagles there. And if Gracie's up and I see an eagle, well, I will call her in. And when she sees me, and I use a lure, we call it. Anyway, when she sees me with that thing, she knows, oh, I better get home to Dad. Something's wrong. And so she'll come down because I don't want her to be risked. It would be, if she's out there, she catches something, or an eagle sees her, he's a lot bigger than she is, and he would see her at, breakfast.
Bigger and faster.
And so, yes.
Could you stand up?
Oh,
Your
I'm
shirt is exactly the same color as the bird.
Yeah, well, that's probably not much of a contrast. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, but they don't have to come back. They choose to. And actually, they're kind of, they're real practical. As long as you're useful to them, basically when we take them out, our role is basically we're just their dog. We find stuff for them, and if we don't do our job, they get mad at you. But as long as you're useful to them, they'll come back to you because they see you as a partner. The minute you're not, well, they don't need you. I mean, they can take care of themselves out there. And so that's when they might say, this guy's not up to the task.
If these
I'm
two
gonna
went
go
up
off.
at the same time, would they one try to capture the other?
Probably not, but they also aren't, they would not be cooperative either. People fly groups of Harrises, and there's a few people who will fly a Harris and a red tail together. If you put these two up in a field, they would probably just go their opposite ways.
They wouldn't be friendly to each
They
other.
would not be friendly, and they would not be cooperative. And if one of them is feeling territorial, they'd go after him. Forget that guy up in Fort Worth. His peregrine was very territorial. He used to go after red tails all the time, which is not a good thing to go to crab with a red tail when you're a peregrine. It's one thing if you keep your distance from them. And this guy said, well, he did that over and over again. One day the red tail got him through the beak, and he said he quit doing that. And he's never messed with them since. But they will do that. And Harris hawks tend to be kind of territorial. They'll go after horned owls and red tails and things they shouldn't tangle with either. So, yes, ma'am.
How often do you feed them or let them go out and find food, and do they regurgitate a pellet?
They do, just like owls,
Yeah.
even though they don't have, owls do not have a crop. They can eat till they fill their stomach. These guys will fill their crop ahead of time. The diurnal raptors all have a crop that they fill up, and it doesn't digest, and so they can actually eat too much, and it can be an issue. So, oh, I'm sorry, okay. I hunt my birds on alternate days. Since I have a red tail and a Harris, I hunt them on alternate days. I feed them about 2 days worth of food. So they're just bloated, but it's enough so that the 2 days later, when it's hunting time, they're back ready to hunt again. During the summer, when they're molting, I feed them every day.
What about the young? I mean, what about mating in the young? I mean, what happens? Presumably this is, I don't know whether it's a bachelor or a...
This is a female Harris hawk.
Yeah, but I mean, what, there must be, obviously some mating has to go out and to raise the young. Do they cooperate with feeding?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's the only kind of, Harris hawks live in groups, and the younger generation of Harris hawks will get game and bring it to the nest, feed the young, along with the parents. And then again, the alpha female is running the whole operation. But you'll have 5 or 6 in a family group, and they're all out hunting and contributing, and some of them are kids that won't leave home, essentially, and they're perfectly capable of hunting, but they're still asking you for their allowance. And they help in Harris hawks, but otherwise it's strictly a pair of peregrines, it's a pair of red tails, prairie fowl, whatever it is, it's strictly a pair.
They're loners, like most of them. Harris hawks are different. They do operate in a pack, but most other raptors, they are loners. They live their life alone. It's just how it is.
But red tails mate for life, so that pair will stay together. I don't know what it
Peregrines
is.
will too.
Yeah.
But they only come together to raise young, and then they go their separate ways after that. And they get together again a year later.
For peregrines, red tails
But
will
they
hang
go their
out.
separate ways.
Red tails will hang around with each other year round. Peregrines will wait till they're in the mood.
How much does Farrah weigh?
Fair about 1.75 pounds, something like that.
And how old is she?
She is
You said 17.
15, I think.
15.
I have my numbers wrong. She's 15, and a guy gave her to me when she was a year old. He was gonna release her, he was having trouble with her.
Yeah. You can pass this around. You can see, this is for an eagle.
This is a-
We'll compare. And then this
Very
is for like a little bird. You want to kind of look at it.
Where did you buy this kind of thing?
Well, I make them, but they're all handmade. You can't make it on
Wow,
machine.
not from
You
Amazon?
can buy these. There are people that, they got nothing to do. And it takes a lot of skill or craftsmanship, but you can buy them now, anyway. When I got into it, you couldn't buy this stuff. You had to learn how to make everything. So I had to learn how to make everything. These days, though, there are falconers that they like making goods, and so they make a bunch and then they sell them. So you can buy one.
How does the hood function? What's it covering up?
It covers up their eyes.
Their eyes.
Just their eyes, yeah. They're a visual predator. And so if they can't see, they just kind of relax, chill out. That's the only reason I have her hooded right now. Is because she's not used to being around this many people. It's usually just me and her. And so it's mainly just for her to feel more relaxed and not have to worry about it. But it's nothing against y'all. She just doesn't know you. She doesn't know, are you friend or foe? She knows I'm a friend.
How much does Gracie weigh?
Sure.
She weighs 1,000 grams.
But it was a CE.
Oh, and I don't know. It's like
It's about 2.5 pounds.
30 ounces or something like that.
Well, they, in their mind, they had it for themselves. So the falconer comes in and intervenes. For this, Mike hunts mostly waterfowl, and rabbits and squirrels is what I try to catch.
We got a lot of squirrels here.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, that's this season.
You can stay around here, I'd like to hear better.
Okay.